All right, Trendsetter, we are back and we are previewing UFC 268 in New York City. It happens this Saturday. Trendsetter, first of all, it is good to be back here on HSP. The hiatus was well deserved, I guess, and now we're back and we're covering what we love to do, and that's pro wrestling, MMA, everything entertainment. And joining us right now, man, is good dude, man, really good dude, and a new friend to the show, and that is Kevin Varghese. And he joins us on HSP, and we're talking UFC 268, man. What's going on, dude? How are you, man? I haven't seen you since Philly for MLW Fightland. You must be excited here in New York City, the backdrop for UFC 268.
Hey, man, I am super excited. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. Listen, the High Spot Podcast, I'm out here. I'm about to take my jump into the pro wrestling podcasting world with you guys. But we are here to talk about UFC 268, which is, of course, in beautiful New York City in the ever great MSG. We have, honestly, one of the greatest cards to date with great stories, great rivalries. Everything's going great. But right now, I'm looking at Brian's mustache, and it's just I can't stop staring at it, man. It's just
And it's distracting,
it's
It's
very
they call me the
distracting.
trendsetter for a reason.
We might have to change. We have to change his look because if it's distracting to our guests, we might have to nix that. But Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. You got a huge resume, very impressive, my dude. We talked about it in Philly, but just for the audience, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I came onto the journalism game. I'm not even. I never went to school for journalism. I kind of fell on it because the major I was taking in school I wasn't a big fan of when I went to work up for it. So then I was like, I needed to step out, and I love sports, and I always loved some aspect of it. So I was like, let me do something. I started writing eventually, and then writing eventually led to journalism, and journalism led to on-site media correspondency. So I would go out for events like to all these mixed MMA fights and all that. Bellator was one of my biggest step ups. They actually were my biggest first step into the MMA art. I was credentialed for the Paris card. That was the inaugural France MMA card that they had. But other than that, I've been I work for several online websites. The Scrap. I used to work for Overtime Heroics. I work for My MMA News. But I essentially came upon this lifestyle by luck, and by no means because no, my parents never told me this would be a career option. No one ever told me like, hey, you could do this for a living. You could do content creation for a living. You could do any of this for a living. So here's a little plug for the people out there. If this is a possibility, you can do it. Brian and Jeff, these guys are doing it as well. So like, if we're doing it, having fun, and if you really put in the effort, you can do it. So there's my little motivational message right there.
It's
Yeah.
a great message. It's a great message to have because, like, when we met in Philly for MLW, it was basically that, just kind of figuring out what our background were and what we did and how we got to where we were. And it's definitely a lot of hard work. But if you're passionate about it and you enjoy it, then by all means, go for your dream,
Mhm.
go for what you're passionate about, which very few people do nowadays, honestly. But it's so exciting because we're talking about wrestling, but then finding out how much you're a huge fan and covering mixed martial arts. It's funny how those two worlds are very parallel to each other, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think you could call them the Step Brothers. They're not directly related, but they got some relation, through some weird connection. And I think it comes to the art of promotion. The art of promotion is very, very, very fundamental in the art of combat sports and the art of sports entertainment or pro wrestling, as the hardcore people like to say. But the thing I think about sport, pro wrestling, is you can tell more stories with pro wrestling than you can with mixed martial arts, right? Mixed martial arts has that uh, dip to reality where in wrestling the guy can get hit with a sweet chin music but somehow come back and reverse it into a tombstone pile driver. But in MMA, someone hits you with a sweet chin music, bro, you're not waking up, right?
No, definitely not.
Exactly. So, but it helps me as an individual who covers both sports. it helps you open two sides of like, your two sides of yourself. Like, if you like pro wrestling, you're gonna love the storytelling aspect of it. If you love combat sports, you're gonna love the technique, the aspects of it. So, like he said, like Step Brothers is the perfect way. Like, Will Ferrell and damn it, what's his name?
The other guy, I know.
The other guy.
He's such a good actor too, and forget his name. That's how horrible it is.
He was on Guardians of the Galaxy. He was on Talladega Night. Damn it.
Walk Hard was another good movie. Yeah. We'll get the name. We'll get the name before the show closes. This is how good of researchers we are here while we interview our guests, man. But check them out. Check them out on Instagram, man. You can follow them on Instagram at KSHAJ. Just want to spell it out for you guys there, so you can give him a follow on.
John Riley, guys.
John Riley.
Yeah. I forget him.
John Riley, if you're watching this, we sincerely apologize. No.
Sorry.
No,
I loved him in Dewey Cox. That story.
Walk Hard. Yeah,
Walk Hard.
That was a very good movie. So again, no disrespect there for you. So listen, man, there's a buzz in New York. I mean, you got the Knicks that are playing well, the Rangers are playing well. New York is alive, at least in those two sports. Football, not so much, but there's a buzz though. There's a buzz for this week.
Mike White is the
Mike effing White.
Franchise quarterback of the New York Jets now.
Yep. Mike effing White also too. That's
Zach who?
Zach who?
The funny thing is, I think the Jets added Zach Wilson's personal quarterback coach this week too. That was a funny thing too. Yeah. Like Mike, they're like telling Mike, "Hey, Mike, you don't have the job just yet. That's why we're adding the coach."
I believe John Beck. They hired him to help out Zach Wilson. But hey, that's a whole podcast in itself. There, the whole quarterback controversy that may happen. It's one game. I'm not gonna go crazy. I'm having fun with the Miracle Man, Mike White. But getting back to the buzz in MSG.
I mean, it's buzz all over New York. The Giants stink. The Jets have a new franchise quarterback, supposedly, or a quarterback controversy. And then we're on the cusp of UFC 268. Now, I am an historian. That's why I love pro wrestling. But in terms of the amazing moments that it finally took mixed martial arts to finally get to Madison Square Garden. And then you had that historic event, which I think is one of the top moments in MSG history for mixed martial arts, was Conor McGregor. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can say what you want about him, but Conor McGregor became the first ever MMA fighter in the UFC to be a dual champion, defeating Eddie Alvarez for the lightweight title and also being a champion in the featherweight division too. What an amazing moment like that. Does this particular event, this card that's built the way it is, that you talked so highly of, right? Does it have that same kind of feeling that it could be another historic moment as well?
So the way this card is built, it's built on marketing, promotion, and just pure bad blood. All right, we won't even start with the title fights. We'll start with the people's main event. All right, we got Justin Gaichi versus Michael Chandler. Justin Gaichi, when he's not being reckless, right? When he's being very robotic and listening to Trevor Whitman, the all-star coach right now, he is unstoppable. Like, you saw him versus Tony Ferguson when the UFC came back at UFC 249 in Jacksonville for the first UFC card since the pandemic started. We saw Justin Gaethje go up against Tony Ferguson, the supposed boogeyman of the lightweight division. And when I mean Justin took Tony Ferguson, so I am a big Tony Ferguson fan. And I can tell you, ever since that fight, Tony Ferguson hasn't been the same. And I can legitimately say Justin Gaethje took that man's soul, right? And it's like, and if you get that Justin Gaethje to go up against the Michael Chandler, that he's fought the toughest of the toughest. Everybody likes to discredit Bellator because they're the B League promotion, but let's be honest, Bellator
has every promotion, to be honest. Right? If it's not UFC, then it's kind of similarly like, oh, then you're not that level supposedly.
There's great fights everywhere, though. I mean, I obviously it's kind of like WWE the way they see AEW. It's kind of like that B product, but it's really not. You get a lot of good matches everywhere. There's just so much good MMA right now. Wherever you can see it, and there is a huge demand for it, and obviously everyone is interested about this matchup. And do you see here in this matchup that we're talking about, where obviously Justin Gaethje is minus 180 and Michael Chandler is at plus 155. Yes, we have to talk about the gambling
The
odds
bets.
because
You have to.
Gotta
because
make some money out here.
yeah, because you can't, you just can't enjoy sports. You got to also, put little shekels on these matches here. So, all in all, though, the way you analyze this bout here, who do you think has the edge, and what do you think is the outcome of this match?
This is like the big factor is which type of Justin Gaethje shows up, because we saw against, like, here's the thing, right? When he went up for the title unification bout against Khabib, the main argument point for Justin Gaethje having a chance against Khabib was his defensive grappling was amazing. It's next level. And Khabib just went in there and steamrolled him with the grappling. So if the defensive Justin Gaethje shows up with his grappling and his leg kicks, then I think Justin Gaethje, because Michael Chandler is susceptible to leg kicks before. It's been seen in Bellator in one of his fights. I think Justin Gaethje has the upper hand. But if Justin Gaethje can't stop the takedown, then it's ground and pound heaven for Michael Chandler.
Yeah, and that's what it feels like to me, what's going to happen here. And let's be honest, as much as people want to, and again, I'm not saying this because I'm a huge Conor fan, but the same scenario, when you have basically one dimension in mixed martial arts, which Justin Gaethje is known as being, let's be honest, a knockout artist, because he's that heavy-handed, right? He can put anybody to sleep with the bare touch of his fist. But if it gets to the point where Michael Chandler can get in there, and I'll be honest, I didn't know much about Michael Chandler in the beginning when I first saw him and make his UFC debut. And I was like, wow, this guy is super fast, super quick. And I could see him, kill the distance between him and Justin Gaethje. And it just goes to the ground. It's Michael Chandler's world in my opinion there. So, as much as people are rooting for Justin Gaethje, I got Michael Chandler in this one. I really do. And I think, honestly, they haven't talked about it a lot, but I think this one is the pivotal, number one contender to see what happens later down the road with the lightweight title.
Yeah, listen, I agree. So the winner of this fight will go up against Khabib's prodigy, who just won last weekend, Islam Makhachev. So Islam Makhachev is right now tearing through the lightweight division. He's on his way up. He's literally one fight away from a title shot. So
another UFC guy that I can't spell his name, so that's good.
Or pronounce his name.
Well, I just, I'm gonna,
Yeah, but there's so many names that I butcher in the UFC too, so it's not just
believe me. Listen, you guys, at least you're not like Reebok. Reebok, when they initially announced their deal with the UFC, they were misspelling so many athletes' names wrong. They were combining athletes' names. So don't worry, you're doing a good job, if anything.
But talk about, though, Khabib's prodigy, though, because that's somebody I guess we have to look out for in the future, right?
Yes. Okay. Islam Makhachev is apparently bigger and better than Khabib, and that's coming from people inside his own camp. And Josh Thompson is so highly speaking of him. Josh Thompson is former UFC, former Strikeforce champion, former UFC title contender, and now current Bellator analyst. So he goes to AKA and trains with Khabib and Islam. And he says Khabib is all about the technique, right? He's always ahead of you on the technique. But Islam, he has that power. Once he gets a hold of you, you're not getting out. And from the fight against Dan Hooker this weekend, you could tell he got Dan Hooker down, and Dan Hooker did the right thing. He went back to he got to the back of the cage, but Islam was so powerful that he just stepped over him, took his arm, and just blasted a Kimura to the point where Dan Hooker couldn't do anything. So, and everybody's saying, like, if Dustin Poirier is going against Charles Oliveira, who beat Michael Chandler for the undisputed lightweight title, and it's gonna get crazy because with things heating up, if Dustin Poirier manages to beat Charles Oliveira, then Islam Makhachev is next, and Dustin Poirier is one of the few people that's been inside the cage with Khabib, so he knows what it's like to face that threat.
Yeah, it seems like a rejuvenation of the lightweight division, because before you only had a handful of people there. Now it seems to be like the division that everybody wants to see and everybody wants to take a look at, and the contenders are just like everyone's so good on that level. So I talked to Jeff too. I don't really care about ranking systems. I know AEW does it. I know UFC does it, but I mean, Kevin, you and I talked about this before. Rankings mean absolutely nothing. If you can promote yourself well enough and have convincing victories, like you just mentioned before,
you'll skyrocket,
you're
right?
skyrocketing. You're next in line for a title shot. So I think the ranking systems are completely worthless in my opinion. I don't know why the UFC does them, but again, but again, talking about that division, the women's strawweight division, man, that thing is loaded in my opinion. And it's all set up for the co-main event of UFC 268 with Rose Namajunas and the former strawweight champion. And I hope I don't butcher her name, but what is it? Zhang Weili? Is it her last name?
Yeah, so Weili Zhang.
Weili Zhang. There you go.
There we go.
So glad that you're leading this, Trendsetter. So glad.
I'm trying here, man, too. It's like I know who they are, but it's kind of like I'm good with faces, but names, it's like forget about it.
Listen,
but what a great main event built up from the last one they fought where Rose nearly dominated it. So now we're gonna wonder and get the answer here. Was it a fluke, or is Rose just that good?
So see, the problem with this fight, and because it happens so fast, there's no classification of can you truly give it to one side, right? Like Rose landed the perfect strike, right? Because Zhang thought she was going for a low leg kick, so she stepped back and leaned forward. And instead it seemed like she went question mark kick and landed it perfectly on the chin, and it dropped really, and really can argue that she was still there. No, but she was out for 5 seconds and then she came back too. And going into this fight, the problem is I like when it comes to Rose, I haven't seen her go 5 rounds against a Weili Zhang. Joanna Jędrzejczyk went 5 rounds with Weili Zhang and left with looking like Frankenstein. That's how crazy it was.
That was fight of the year.
Fight of the year. Like it was crazy. And what sucked was the next fight after that was totally, just like a killer. It was like HBK versus Undertaker, then went into Triple H versus Randy Orton, that type of feeling,
Very good. Even I get that one.
Exactly.
I like the way he's explaining it to me so that now I understand. Thank you, Kevin, so much.
You think UFC fighters think that way, Kevin? Honestly, or they're like, man, I got to follow that now. Like, that was a huge match. It was so energetic. I got to follow that. Or they just care about obviously surviving and winning the fight?
I mean, if I'm a fighter, right, I would want the crowd to be pumping me up, especially if I'm the main event. Come on, come on.
Well, they got incentives though, right now. They like for knockout of the fight, right? Knockout of the
bonuses.
Yeah, so that's probably what they're thinking about mostly. Like, all right, I gotta knock this sucker out or something like that, or I gotta have the match of the night, right? Because you do get purses for that. I think that's good, man. I think those incentives are pretty good too. So instead of maybe thinking I gotta follow that bout, it's more like I want that purse, right? So
I gotta ask you a question about this fight with Rose and Weili. For me, like, prior to it, when Weili was a champion, there were talks about how Rose even publicly came out and said it too, that mental health was a real issue and she was not happy and she was putting a lot of pressure on herself. Now in the second title reign, you've seen more of the interviews she's done publicly leading up to this fight. Does she seem like she's in that better mental state now where she seems stronger? Or it could be something similar to before where the pressure is just on her to perform and be that very top person that it could actually weigh her down and cost her this fight?
So you're right. Like, you have to expect, like, you saw one side of Rose and then now you're seeing a newer side of Rose. Like, and you're wondering, hey, is this permanent or is this temporary until that pressure comes back again and then does she crumble? I honestly think Rose has she has changed and turned the page for the better. So she had a lot of she was part of the whole Conor attacking in the Barclays, I think.
Yeah, in the Barclays Center. The
right,
bus
it happened right, a couple of minutes away from you guys and me. It was crazy, and she was a part of that. And I think she wasn't ready for and you could tell she's not the type of person to step out in the spotlight. She likes being quiet, staying to herself. But I don't think she was truly ready for what stepping into the spotlight and there's being the martial arts side of being a champion, but then there's also the marketing and promotional side of being a champion, and that can really wear people out. Like, look at Tyrone Woodley. I honestly think that the the marketing and promotional side got too much of his MMA side, and that's why he lost to Kamaru Usman, who's fighting this Saturday, right? So the same thing, I get every champion faces the same challenge, and she's facing that challenge right now. But the way she came out of that fight, she was positive. She was confident, saying, "I am the best." If you look at the behind the scenes clip of what the UFC provides on YouTube, you'll see her and her husband, coach Pat Barry, saying, "You're the best," and she's like, "I'm the best. I'm the best," right? And you feel for her, and like you could hear the commentary, like DC is just going off like usual, like Thug Rose, Thug Rose,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Good
Like
job,
he's
yeah.
going wild, and John Anik, like Rose Namajunas is always going to be that feel good story, that people's champion. But Wei Lee, she's a force of nature. She like going 5 rounds with Wei Lee is the only thing I'm concerned with Rose. She can finish Wei Lee, in my opinion, when it comes to the ground, striking wise, but going for an all-out war in which I think Wei Lee is gonna push the pace with Rose, that's what's gonna happen. So if it goes the distance, I see Zhang winning. But if Zhang, makes a mistake, Rose will capitalize and finish the fight.
Yeah,
All right.
no, I'd agree. I think if I'm picking one, I'm picking Rose here, not for the mere fact that she, has now believed in her own hype and who she is as a fighter, but I just think stylistically it favors Rose more than anything in terms of, again, like I talked about with Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje, to close that distance. Can you close it enough on Rose and not get caught? And that's
Mhm.
going to be the question mark we're going to see. But I think Rose, dealt with her before. I think I don't think much changes in styles because you can't change much of who you are as a fighter. You are who you are. You can make adjustments here, but I think we're going to get the same end result. Maybe not a knockout, but it's going to be maybe maybe a submission here. I see it going to the ground.
All right.
If anything, Jeff, we can relay this as Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair.
Gotcha. I
Mhm.
got. Oh, if it's like that, if it's gonna be chippy like Becky and Charlotte is now, I'm all down for that. But again, Kevin, thank you for putting it in terms that I understand. But listen, I'm not. I'm not. I guess I seem smarter than I am. I guess, or what? I'm not as dumb as I look.
So you say.
So I say. So I'm a huge I root for people that are, hometown guys, right?
Mhm.
So I look at this card and I'm thinking, all right, there's no more of a sentimental pick or some people that the crowd is truly behind than a guy like Frankie Edgar, right? So that's why I'm focused on this matchup.
Was it some
A
Jersey?
Jersey guy, you know what I mean? So it's easy to root for Frankie Edgar, and he's going up against Marlon Vera. So is this just a fight that they've given to Edgar because he's a hometown guy? It's in his backyard. What do you think? Your thoughts about this match?
I honestly think his last fight was one of the worst fights I think he's been in, where
Yeah,
he got knocked out cold.
yeah.
And that guy who knocked him out just lost an interim title fight against the in last weekend. So he got knocked out by Corey Sanhagen via flying knee. It was spectacular. It was art. I've never seen a more beautiful knee than that, because it caught Frankie flush, and Frankie was stiff as a board, and you could see it, like him falling down. And all respect to Frankie, him finding a new lease in life in MMA, going down to 135. But when you drain yourself that much, he started his career at 155. Think about it like this, right? A guy is fighting at 135. He started fighting. He was a champion at 155, went down to 145, couldn't beat the champion there twice. Went down to 135, and guess what? The champion who he couldn't beat twice at 145 went down with him. He fought for the. It's crazy because Frankie Edgar's been in this sport so long that you
Oh
think
yeah.
he'd be retired by now, right? He's made enough money. He's been a champion. He's fought all the big names. He stopped hype trains. He's fought the names, and you would think he would call it quits, but he's not that guy. He thinks that he can honestly make a run at the title at 135. And I honestly think that if this fight doesn't go his way, we could see calling him, putting the gloves down in the octagon. But this is a fight clearly for him to build back his momentum. That the UFC's like, here's a guy, who's there in the rankings. If you want, fight him, get the dub, and build yourself back up for one final run, because he is on his final legs as a mixed martial artist. All respect to Frankie. I'm not trying to discredit him. He has the names on his record are just you can't find another guy with the names he has. So Frankie Edgar, if he wins, it's going to be by decision. But I honestly think we can see him getting finished because he cuts a lot of weight to make 135.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add to that real quick and ask you, Kevin, that I've seen Frankie Edgar, I've seen the wars he's had, I've seen his upcoming when he defeated BJ Penn, and that was just huge moment for him. And then you see where BJ Penn is in his career, and now I feel kind of the similarities towards Frankie in terms of that's kind of similarly happening to Frankie. Not that he's getting dominated now, but it just feels like this sport, whether it be this or pro wrestling, eventually sometimes it just kind of passes you by. I mean, it evolves, and there's only so much that you can do as a person as the sport evolves with it, as pro wrestling evolves throughout the years from the 90s to the 2000s to the Attitude Era to the Ruthless Aggression to the PG Era to where we are now with oversaturation of pro wrestling. And now you could say the same thing for mixed martial arts because you have, the Bellator, you have Bare Knuckle, you have the PFL, right? You have all those promotions out there promoting it. But in terms of Frankie, granted that if he loses this fight, it doesn't look good for him. But does it really feel as if that there's no more room for him to evolve as a fighter? This is kind of where he is, and this is where he's stuck kind of in limbo.
So with Frankie, his style is very it has a longer lifespan than normal people, because now his style is like, maintain the distance, grapple with people. But back in the day, man, some of his fights, if he fought them today, would be stopped.
Yeah.
He the guy survived multiple knockdowns in several title fights. You have to understand, each knockdown takes a lot out of a guy's longevity in the sport, right? Recently, this past weekend, UFC 267, there was a fight that was horribly refereed. There was a French fighter by the name of Saint Benoit going up against this Brazilian fighter, Dos Santos. And Dos Santos had this guy on, mind my language, but, the saying is queer street. The guy was doing the chicken dance. He was had no legs on him. And the ref was just watching him. Like, the commentators were going crazy. Like, stop the fight, stop the fight. And the man was watching it like, oh, I'm just, honestly, it looked like the referee was eating his popcorn and watching the fight at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Like, that was that bad. Like, you watch the fight, you'll see, like, there was 3 opportunities in this. This was in the second round, not at the end of the round, third round. This is a second round where they could have stopped the fight, and he just kept taking punishment. But props to Saint Benoit. He somehow made it through the second round and the third round and, made it back. But with Frankie Edgar, going back to the subject at hand, Frankie Edgar has to realize that if he's taking damage for no reason, because he doesn't need to do this anymore. I'm telling you, there are several athletes in this sport that have done what they needed to do, have made the money, and he's represented by one of the best agents in the game. Hate him or love him, Ali Abdelaziz takes care of his clients. He's taking care of Frankie Edgar. He's making sure he's getting paid, all that stuff. So this fight is honestly the big turning point in Frankie Edgar's career. The chapter which will tell, do I still have it to make another run, or is this truly it?
Wow, a lot of stories going into UFC 268, but nothing bigger than the main event, what the whole card is built off of right now. And, we follow pro wrestling. We love stories. You go to a movie theater, you see a trailer. I can't wait to see that movie. I can't wait to see that wrestling match. I can't wait to see this fight. So much bad blood between these two. You thought it was over once the first fight happened, and now a lot of questions still remain unanswered. Do we get closure here, or do we get is it a shock about Colby Covington? So first thing I want to ask you, Kevin, is that, in this fight, it's built up so well. It basically writes itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it live up to the expectations that's being built up for it? And who do you have in this one?
This fight, and some people will say like, oh, Colby didn't deserve the rematch because he wasn't active. But guess what? The UFC doesn't care about that. The UFC cares about pay-per-view shares and making money. And this fight does everything. It checks all the boxes. It needed to happen. Jorge Masvidal got his rematch without, fighting anybody. And in all due respect, if he can do that, I think Colby can go down the same path. And you know what? This is the fight that I was looking at, and you guys managed to interview Colby pre American Bad Boy gimmick, so like he was just getting I guess he was feeling it out, feeling it out when you guys were interviewing him. But I'll tell you right now, this is it. This is like he's cashing all in. Mind the pun for the pro wrestling terms, but
putting all the chips in front, right? This is honestly,
here's the funny thing. If he was still with ATT, he would be appearing at AEW. I'm pretty sure he would be their top guy. Instead of Kayla Harrison, instead of Jorge Masvidal, it would be Colby Covington that they'd be pushing it on the AEW platform. But I'm telling you right now, if he loses, this is it. You can't come back from this. You cannot come back from this. You're cashing in your reputation. You're cashing in your gimmick. You're cashing in your all the credits that you received in your MMA careers in this one fight, right? You used up the one excuse that you get, the one get out of jail free card. You used it up to get your rematch. Now, when it comes down to this is it. This is Colby Covington's last chance. You can tell me any other way. You can tell me, no, the man's going to know. Because if he loses, that's it. How can you as a man come out and say, you know what, that was BS. I got a trilogy coming up. You're not Conor McGregor. You're not like the guy that can automatically sell a pay-per-view. Your whole you're literally standing on a needle. That is your reputation, your gimmick, and the fact that you almost beat Kamaru Usman in your last match at UFC 245. So, ladies and gentlemen, I honestly think Colby Covington can pull it off. But I'm not counting out Kamaru Usman because he has the coach that changes everything. That is
come on, Kevin, you got to pick one though. You can't say I'm thinking Kobe's going to win, but you know what, Kamaru, you got to pick one. Who do you have in this? It's got to be Kobe or Kamaru. You have to pick one. I know. I've let you get away with towing the line there because you never want to pick one. But this one, you got to choose one. It's either Kobe or Kamaru Usman.
All right, if you want me to be honest, I'm going for Kobe. I honestly want to see someone like him become champion, have a couple
tremendous.
He'd be tremendous for business. I think he would be a great, transition from Conor McGregor being champion and, having his shtick and everything. He can give Conor a break. Conor can go fix himself, his morality issues and his public issues. And then while, Conor's doing that, Colby can, take over the UFC game.
Conor has issues? What are we talking about?
No. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Conor is a saint, guys.
See, but I think here's the thing. Like, I think Colby. See, I think Usman. I think he'll win because I just think he needs to be. And here you go. This is me with my amazing breakdown. Usman needs to. He could not be at 100% and still win this, but Colby needs to. Everything's got to work for him that night. So that's what I think. I think that Usman can get away with stuff, but Colby has to be the match of his life to beat Usman. That's where I put it. And I'm rooting for Colby because I think I would pay to see him get his ass kicked every time he goes into the octagon, man, because that's the kind of guy that he is, and it's good for business. Right, and that's why he's going to put butts in the seats here at MSG in Madison Square Garden, and that's why we're all looking forward to this rematch. And that's how I would say it, and how I would break it down too is that Usman at 80% can still win this, and Colby has got to give it, and again, cliche, 110% in order for him to come out victorious. And I think it's going to be a great night of action and stuff like that. I really do. But
Jeff, no, everything you said is 100% accurate. And the one thing I don't give Jeff a lot of compliments because he doesn't deserve them. Jeff doesn't deserve compliments at all, Kevin. I will give him one here because he said that he would pay to see Kobe get his ass kicked. Isn't that what this is all about, basically? Right?
You talked about before. You talked about promotion.
Either you pay somebody to want to win or you want to pay them to get beat. And unfortunately, hey, I have all the respect in the world for Kamaru Usman. I'm sure Kamaru doesn't even care about my respect right now. But at the same time, when I look at Kamaru Usman, if I wasn't somebody who followed the sport or followed to a I'm not a die hardcore MMA fan, but I wouldn't know who Kamaru Usman is. But I know who Colby Covington is. I know who Conor McGregor is. I know who John Jones is, because these guys transcend something further than the sport, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for John Jones,
Kobe,
got to look at the
like
back
what Kevin
pages.
just said, Jeff, and when you just said everything is on the line for Kobe.
Yeah.
This is what makes him, in my opinion, dangerous, because what I've seen from Kamaru Usman in the last couple of fights he had prior to Kobe, he wants respect behind his name. And my thing is, when I've seen fighters or anybody look for respect because they feel they're being disrespected, a perfect example, in my opinion, would be Tyron Woodley. So concerned about the promotion, not promoting him correctly, people booing him. What do you care? You're a champion. You're the best of the best. You don't need to prove anything else. And now for me, it seems more than anything, unless Kamaru decides to go up into a weight class, go up to 185, which would be middleweight, Jeff, and 170 is welterweight. If he decides to go up to try to get another title as the current champion, which now seems to be a thing everybody's doing. I mean, Conor's the first one to do it. Daniel Cormier. Then it was Amanda Nunes. And now, maybe Kamaru, that might want to be adding on to his legacy to who, in my opinion, who's the greatest welterweight of all time, George St. Pierre. At this point right now, it seems like Kamaru is just dealing with his legacy now and what his legacy is going to be in the welterweight division. And that can be a dangerous thing. So when you start worrying about what your legacy is before it's over, before it's written itself, and you had a dangerous fighter like Colby Covington, you said something perfect, Kevin. You said, if Colby thinks it's going to be the same Kamaru Usman, then he's in trouble. But the same likelihood for Kamaru, if he thinks it's going to be the same Colby Covington coming in, he's going to be in a dangerous situation. And I'm not going to say that Kamaru's overlooking Colby Covington, but I think right now, what does he have to fear? And that could be a dangerous thing, because he probably doesn't fear him. He thinks he's got this in the bag because he's a confident guy. And this is, to me, I'm rooting for Colby, but I think Colby is going to, shock the world supposedly and defeat one of the most dominant welterweights since George St. Pierre and Kamaru Usman. I think we're going to have a new welterweight champion.
You know what I think? I think you guys should do UFC podcast.
Isn't that what we're doing right now? Isn't that what we're kind of doing?
No,
right
but
now?
I think I'm thoroughly entertained by you two guys. Your breakdown for this,
because the storyline is perfect. It's a beautiful wrestling storyline, Jeff. It really is.
I'll tell you one thing. If there's one guy that makes Kamaru Usman restless, right, it's definitely Colby Covington, right? And at the end of the day, because if I honestly think, Colby got a little cocky, and that's what led to him dropping his guard down and getting his jaw broken from one of Kamaru's punches, right? And I honestly think if he didn't have that whatever the jaw issue was, Colby would just keep coming forward. And, listen, you remember, though, there's like the whole storyline in the welterweight division. It's crazy. Like, we could do a whole podcast dedicated to that. But the way it goes down is, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, former best friends, right? It's like it's like the elite storyline. It's like an elite storyline, basically, right? The elite. Former best friends turned enemies. Now, like they would never fight each other, but then somehow something got said and it got mistranslated, and now they're beefing.
You know where that first started? You know who first started that?
Who?
Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. That's where it first started.
Yeah.
Because it was always the bond. Supposedly they were friends. Tito thought they were friends, and Chuck's like, we're not friends. And the agreement supposedly was they were never going to fight each other. But when Tito defeated Ken Shamrock, and to me, one of the best UFC pay-per-views, in my opinion, UFC 40 Vendetta, and Jeff and I love that one. For Ken Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz, that was the storyline going into it. Tito had an injury. Chuck faced Randy Couture. Then he had Randy Couture defeat Tito, and then all of a sudden it was Tito and Chuck Liddell, one of the greatest.
I'm getting goosebumps.
One of the greatest trilogies in my life. Although I don't count the last one because they're way past their prime, and Chuck shouldn't have been in the ring to begin with. Still,
no, that was
one of the greatest rivalries I saw to date at that point.
That was started with those two. De La Hoya doing a lot of coke before calling Chuck and Tito and being like, "Hey guys, do you want to do a trilogy rematch or something?"
Exactly.
Oh my god,
but still, it started with that. Friends that were never going to face each other, and now are bitter enemies. Beautiful storyline. I wonder where I've seen this before, Jeff.
De La Hoya is a podcast in itself. There, Oscar De La Hoya.
We could do like 10 podcasts from all.
Have you seen who he's dating? Holly Saunders. Have you seen that?
Who?
Do you know
De La Hoya is
De La
dating
Hoya?
Holly Saunders.
No.
Yes. Yes. Lucky guy. He's got to look. No, trust
Just
me.
gotta look it up.
It's
Yeah,
not,
no,
yeah.
we're not faking here. We have reliable sources on this one.
Spoiler. Yeah. Yeah.
But no, you're right. It's a beautiful story that writes itself, and I like to believe it's going to live up to the hype. I don't like to think most main events. Sometimes you have that tendency. Like, for example, I'm a huge fan of George St. Pierre, but towards the later end of his career, now with Michael Bisping, because he fought at middleweight, it was kind of a boring fight because George was wanting to win and not get knocked out and damaged. But in his final match of his career, George St. Pierre at Madison Square Garden defeated Michael Bisping for the 180-pound title, midweight title, choked him out, blood coming down George St. Pierre's face for his final. What a way to go, right? This one, if Kobe wins, which I hope he wins, and I do think he's going to win, trilogy right there.
Yeah. So believe it or not, that fight that was actually the fight card where Rose became the first time ever strawweight champion, UFC 217.
Yeah, she beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Yep. Looking back into this card, you're right. Like MSG gets the best cards. At the end of the day, whenever UFC comes to New York, you're guaranteed a great card. And that's why, they called on Daniel Cormier when they didn't have a main event. They called on Daniel Cormier, Derek Lewis to main event UFC 230, and it didn't do that great. But hey, you got Daniel Cormier. There's one thing I gotta tell you guys: this card is going to either go bust with the main event because Kamaru Usman, I don't know why, but I have this sore feeling that he won't chase the action. He's gonna stand there and wait for Colby to come to him, and then he's gonna. Because I honestly don't think that Kamaru is gonna take any chances with Colby, because Kamaru's smart. He knows that if he gambles with someone on Colby's caliber, it could lead to mistakes and could lead to him losing his title. So it's gonna be either Usman picks up his confidence with his striking and is just beating him down, or he's very tentative and Colby just implements his game plan. But I'm telling you, I don't know if you guys are gonna be MLW. If you manage to catch the main event, I'm telling you, it's gonna be worth it.
I know. I hope it's not like they're 3 minutes walking around. I hope it doesn't turn out to be 3 minutes of them just kind of feeling each other out, because that would be, you'll be hearing the boos, no question, in MSG. That's what I'm hoping not going to happen.
This is 5 rounds, right? This is 5 rounds?
It's 5-minute rounds, exactly. Those are championship fights. You have 5-minute rounds. Normal fights are 3 5-minute rounds.
All right. So can I do a rapid fire here with Kevin here? Because UFC 268 is this Saturday. Looking forward to the MSG, the mecca for you New York fans of sports there, Madison Square Garden, New York City, in the heart of the Big Apple. That's my wrestling promotion right there. At the heart of the Big Apple, MSG, UFC 268.
Nice to have the name twice.
So here's my thing. Are the Paul brothers good for MMA?
No.
No? A few sentences, 1 or 2 there to elaborate.
You have to understand, Dana White actually makes a valid point when it comes to the business aspects of how the UFC runs. Like, listen, if you really, at the end of the day, the UFC can pay you what you're worth. Like, they'll pay you based on your skill level, your contract, everything. And then if you really sell and you make money for them, they'll give you the money that you're worth. But at the same time, MMA is a baby considered to all the other sports, right? So when you think about how far MMA's come in a professional business standard, it's comes in such a far way. So you got to be patient with the payments and everything. Conor McGregor is the first guy to break the standards, and eventually people will start breaking the standards. Even I'm telling you, as the UFC keeps making more money and the Disney keeps pumping more money into them, then you'll start seeing look, Dan Hooker, the guy that stepped in on 1 month's notice this last Saturday to fight. Even though he lost, you know what he tweeted? He tweeted a gif of him crying his tears with dollar bills.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's not, obviously, if you want to make money, there are ways to make money. You just really, you can't just come into the UFC and think everything is going to fall into place. You have to make a game plan. You have to know how to approach this, because at the end of the day, it's a very limited um, option. Like it's not something that lasts long. So if you make the most out of it, it keeps going on. Sorry
Yeah.
about it taking so
No.
long.
And Jeff, to your point too, Dana White's publicly gone out and said during press conferences when this subject was brought up about the payment in boxing and and the UFC fighters or MMA fighters not being paid their due, Dana White's publicly gone out on record, Jeff, to say that the fighters have no problem. They can show how much money they're making, but they don't want to do that because at the same time they don't want to show how much they're making, whether they're making a lot or a little, because that number is private to them. So. Well, I don't think we'll ever really know how much MMA fighters make. I mean,
That number is
McGregor's
never
are the
accurate.
exception to the rule.
Well, see, but I think though, I toe the line where I respect people that are YouTube influencers, because that's all what we want to do. We want to get ourselves over in social media, and that's how we're using the platforms and stuff. I'm
not getting in the ring though.
I know. I'm more into the fact about Logan Paul and Jake Paul, though, as far as like getting attention and drawing eyes to the sport, which I think they're doing.
Yeah.
But again, though, like there is, and Dana White talks about them, kind of doesn't put them over, but by mentioning them and talking about them, I'm sure the media does bring them up. But that's the main question, though. Are they good as far as garnering interest from people that are like novices to the sport and pique their curiosity? To UFC or something that they're doing on, is it Triller or something like that? Is that they're
Triller
doing
is the
stuff?
promotion? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Jeff, I think they're good bringing the generic fan who knows nothing about boxing or that to get intrigued. It could be fans of it. So that's where I think they do bring the influence, and they're good for it and have that conversation like we're having now, whether be fight or pay or just bringing a novice fan to something they don't really recognize. But to me, I don't know, Kevin, you agree with me though, but until I start seeing some real competition, I can't take them seriously. So, yeah.
No, so like Jake Paul and Logan Paul are like a broke man's version of Colby Covington.
Yeah.
Right?
We all wish we were getting their money though, right? We all wish we were getting their money. So if I was getting that money, I might step in the ring. I don't know.
Exactly. Sorry, like, but yeah, like if you look at them, like, bringing the generic, like the main, like, there's always this certain type of audience, right? The hardcore audience, they're like trash, but to the mainstream, to the business people, to the marketing people, they're like gold. So it depends on what type of glasses you're wearing. If you're wearing like the hardcore glasses, they're trash. But if you're wearing like the business glasses, they're money.
Mm-hmm.
And last one for me, and what is after UFC 268? What's the next match we should be looking at upcoming before the end of the year, at least?
Obviously the title fight between, I think, UFC 270, if I'm correct. The main event is going to be most likely Dustin Poirier versus Charles Oliveira. And listen, in pro wrestling, there's something called transitional champions, right? Where somebody wins the belt, but they're not really meant to win the belt. They're just meant to win the belt to give it to the next guy, right? So I think the UFC is going through a bit of a transitional champion phase, right? Because we had John Jones as the longtime light heavyweight champion. And once he stepped out, Jan Blachowicz beat Stony Brook University alum Dominic Reyes in the new lightweight title champion. And then he just lost to Glover Teixeira, the 42-year-old Glover Teixeira, this past Saturday. And now Glover Teixeira is the current UFC lightweight champion. And that's the most we've ever seen in that division's history in a long time. So
light heavyweight champion, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, light heavyweight champion. And so the same thing I think happens with Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is meant to hold that belt for Dustin Poirier, and I think Dustin Poirier wins that. And then, if believe it or not, it comes back full circle to Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev will fight, and if Dustin Poirier still truly has it, he can beat Islam Makhachev. And I think those wars that he's been in with Conor, with Habib, with Dan Hooker, Eddie Alvarez, Justin Gaethje, well, they're gonna, like, when Dustin Poirier fights Islam Makhachev, you're gonna see that wear and tear of all those fights when he faces Islam Makhachev. So I'm telling you, Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier, UFC 270 is gonna lead into that guy facing the winner of Makhachev and Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje. The storylines right now for combat sports, for pro wrestling, for sports entertainment, it's crazy. Like, it's like going to a candy store right now. Like back in the day, like you go, it would be like going to a Blockbuster.
I call it Baskin Robbins, in my opinion. I say Baskin Robbins.
31
Yeah.
flavors,
31
man.
flavors. Choose your flavor, basically. If you don't like vanilla, like me, go. I love vanilla, but if you're not a plain guy like me, then you have so many other flavors to choose from, whether it be wrestling, MMA, any type of entertainment out there that's competitive. They're all competing with each other, basically.
With a mustache like that, I thought you'd be more of a chocolate guy, really.
Nah, it's okay.
Baskin Robbins does have 31 and a half flavors. You know why?
Half? How do you have half a flavor?
Because I am the guy that you're talking about. That matchup, fine, I'd like to see it. But the matchup that I want to see, and that we got a preview of this past the last UFC event, is Hasbulla and Abdurojik. So that's what I want to see. I am the guy that wants to see that happen. The Russian Federation of Little People, make it happen. Don't condemn the fight. I want to see that happen. Did you see that? How nuts is that?
That's crazy. I saw. I like Hasbulla was like I don't know how. Like sometimes you look people, you're like, how did you become famous? I don't know. You look at Hasbulla, right?
Yeah, mad props.
There's nothing special. Like, okay, he's short, he's tiny. He looks like a baby that can, if he wears boxing gloves, looks like a little toy soccer
fighter. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Something like that. And I'm looking at, and then there's another guy, Abdu. I'm like, wait, there's two of them? Oh my God! It's like seeing Hornswoggle meet his worst enemy, right? And they have to go like it's Hornswoggle versus El Torito. No other way to put it. Mm-hmm. There's no other way to put it. Like like it's crazy. Yeah.
They could have any girl that they want, probably.
Oh my God!
they could have any girl that they want.
I'm telling you right now. It's
Jeff,
crazy
I'll say this to you, Jeff.
Like
coming from the world that I cover in terms of the adult film industry, there's a genre for everything, man. So you're right; they can get any girl they want. So I will give that to you, Jeff.
Man.
Exactly.
He can pull anything
you worked in the adult film industry before.
I don't work in the adult film industry. I cover it. Okay. It's the wrong information that I will never work in the adult film industry unless the price is right. But I have my own.
He didn't say never say never.
Yeah, well, like the $1 Million Man said, right? Everybody's got a price.
Everybody's got a price.
They haven't met mine yet.
But I will be there. If they do that in Vegas with Hasbulla, I will be there, Las Vegas, and you'll probably be covering it for your various media outlets there. And listen, I think you're a great guy. I think you're very knowledgeable, and I don't care what Luke Thompson or Brandon or Brian Campbell say about you. I think that Luke Thomas.
Thompson. I was like,
sorry, Luke Thomas.
Okay.
I don't care what they say about you, man. You to me, you're top notch.
Well, thank you. I'm surprised that now I know why you like that. That's random. He liked that. I'm like, okay. But, that was an embarrassing moment. If you guys want to hear the backstory, I'll let you guys in.
Yeah.
So we're doing media day. So I was supposed.
Let me just preface by saying this too. I've met Luke Thomas. I've seen how he works. I don't like that guy whatsoever.
He's a ball buster, I guess. He's just
more than that. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt, even wasting my time talking about. But he's not a nice guy.
Well, anyway, listen. Because of me and who I am in the industry, I have to play nice with everybody.
Yeah.
I can, CM Punk even roasted me, when because that clip went super viral. It it blew up. Like the guy who blew it up, you know what? Screw you, man. Screw you for trying to make fame off my name. But I started like the initial what happened was, so I was supposed to be at the Mohegan Sun for media day, but I couldn't make it, so I was doing things virtually. And I was asking my questions. Everything was going smoothly. And if I remember things correctly, Matt Mitrione just delayed in a little bit in coming for his virtual Zoom meeting. So I go to use the bathroom. And when I come back, I have my iPad and then I have my laptop with my questions, but everything went offline. Like everything just slept, right? So as I'm walking back from the bathroom, I hear on the Zoom, "Hi, Matt Mitrione has now just joined us. Kevin, you're now live," right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm rushing over. I'm trying to avoid the awkward silence, right? Right. So I'm doing that. I'm rushing. And the first thing I opened up was his Tapology record, which if you look at it, he hasn't won in his last 5 fights. He has 3 losses, 1 no contest. And no, actually his last 4 fights. But the thing is, actually, so the way it worked was I was going to ask him, hey, without you being winless in your last 5 fights, how do you plan on getting this? How do you plan on making this victory count and getting a rematch with Fedor? Because Fedor was, coming back to Russia. Everybody was trying to be his next opponent, and Matt Mitrione had was throwing his hat in the ring. And instead of asking that question, I'm like, hey, me being awkward and fumbling through my things, I was like, hey, you could hear it in my voice. So you're 0-5 in your, and then he goes, that's when he loses it. He's like, really, bro? You're gonna start the interview that way? Are you serious right now? Like,
oh man.
And then he starts cursing, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it like that. And then I was fumbling. I honestly don't know what I said and how I said things, but I just said my questions, whatever it was, came out of my mouth, and I just ended it. And that was it. But like, oh my God. And then this guy posted on Twitter, blows up, CM Punk roast me, UFC people roast me, Amanda Serrano, Jake Paul's best buddy, roast me. You know what, Amanda Serrano, I don't like you either. Just FYI. But I learned to make the most. I started promoting it myself.
Yeah, man, you got to.
I flipped the table on everybody, and I started promoting it, and I started I used it to somewhat make a name for myself. Make a name with heavy air quotes. But yeah, it was
whether
rough.
it's good or bad publicity, it's something where your name's out there, so you have to make advantage of it any way you can, regardless of the outcome or the circumstances that led to it. Obviously.
Yeah, I wish I honestly, if they would have shown my face, I would have done my mustache, and then I would have been like, yeah. Here's another thing. So there's an epilogue. There's like a post-credit scene to this story. So I go to the Mohegan Sun on Friday for the fights and everything, and I'm sitting there, and the PR team knows what happened, and they're like laughing, and they're like, yo, listen, if Matt Mitrione wins, right, we're going to put you up first to ask the first question. And you're going to ask, hey, do you have anything to say to the guy who said you were 0-5? And then at the end, I would be like, yeah, I'm that guy. But, thankfully he didn't win. But, man.
Well, now he's 0-6, so you can throw that in his face next time he fights.
Yeah, but here's the thing. So the winner of the fight, right, he's speaking, and then you see Matt Mitrione going. So there's the media room right in front of me, like right there, and then behind us there's like a walkway for the locker rooms and everything, and you see Matt Mitrione just walking by me, and I could feel that presence of the big heavyweight guy walking past me, and then he gets on an escalator that goes up, and he's looking at me, and he doesn't change he doesn't turn away eye contact or anything. I'm staring at him eye to eye. I'm like, oh shit, I have my badge out. He can see my name. And he's looking at me, and he's like, and he starts squinting. And I'm like, oh shit, oh no. And then he squints, and then he just turns away. And I swear to God, the guy next to me, the reporter next to me was like, yo, why are you sweating bullets right now? I'm like, oh, it's really hot right now. I saw Matt Mitrione, and then he started laughing. But I honestly didn't think I was going to make it out of there alive, but I did somehow.
All right, great stuff, Kevin.
We're happy you did.
Listen, we like
Kevin.
you, man. We like you. And you gave us nothing but awesome stuff here on this episode today. We're previewing UFC 268, Usman versus Covington 2. Great card, MSG, New York City. That's it. It's all itself, man, right there. New York City. There. And you'll be there too. So definitely have a great time, man. And looking forward to the main event and all the other fights there on that card too. Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it, Kevin.
Thank you, boys. Listen, I thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I hope to catch you guys live one day, maybe, or catch you at another event. We'll be seeing each other tomorrow and on Friday, so I can't wait for that. And if you guys haven't followed the High Spot Podcast, do it now. Click the subscribe button. Click the notification bell. Do all the fun stuff, because guess what?
Thank you, man.
This is one of the best podcasts I've been part of, so thank you so much.
Awesome, man. We'll definitely see you, man. Best of luck and enjoy Saturday night, dude.
Thank you so much.